Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm sitting in the 2018 Alfa Romeo Stelvio all-wheel drive. Now, the Stelvio is named after the mountain pass in northern Italy. It's about 9,000 feet above sea level, and it has 48 hairpin U-turns etched along the mountain. So for this car to be named after that famous road means that this car has to be something pretty special, right? Well, let's find out as I talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the Alfa Romeo Stelvio. Alright, first let's start off with the good stuff about this car. The engine is spectacular. This has a 2-liter turbocharged engine producing 280 horsepower and 306 pound-feet of torque. Now that is a ton of power considering that this car only weighs about 4,044 pounds. Now that might sound a bit heavy for crossovers of this size, but relatively speaking, compare it to other luxury midsize and compact crossovers, this is roughly about the same weight, but it has a ton more power. For back roads and twisties like this, and even on highways, it makes driving a pure delight. You're never short on power, and to access all that gobs of torque, just downshift once or twice, and you're there. Speaking of downshifting, the transmission on this car is also awesome. This has an 8-speed transmission from ZF. Now this is a regular automatic transmission, not a dual clutch, but just sit down in this car and try shifting and you won't even remember why you want a dual clutch transmission to begin with. This thing shifts so fast, it's one of the best features about this car. Downshifting and upshifting is going to be so much fun because you're holding onto these aluminum paddle shifters. They're so wide and so accessible. You want to just shift this car all the time manually. Some cars I don't really care about putting into manual mode, but for this one, I want to just shift the lever to the left and do all the shifting myself. Now, this is no substitute for manual transmissions, of course, but the state of the industry is you're never going to find manual transmissions with crossovers. So to kind of have that most engaging drive, pick this one because the automatic transmission is awesome. The other good things about this car, it is beautiful. It is one of the best looking crossovers on the road today. And it's thanks to the Scudetto Il Trilobo. That is the iconic Alfa Romeo face. It's got the triangular fascia and it's got the mustache right beneath it. And it looks so distinctive. It's unlike any other crossovers that you'll find today. The Stelvio that I'm sitting in today has the 20-inch wheels equipped. It's a nice sharp contrast to this volcano black metallic paint. From certain angles has a green tinge to it. Of course, right behind the silver wheels is those red brake calipers from Brembo's, which is a nice segue to the next good part about this car, is the brakes. The brakes is good. It's not great, but it's not bad. Again, this being a 4,000 pound car, there's a lot of mass for it to stop. If you want a performance car level of braking, you're gonna have to wait for the Quadrifoglio. That's gonna have ceramic disc brakes and a bunch of other equipment that's not included in this version. Since this has a beautiful exterior, this also has a magnificent looking interior. Just take a look at this infotainment system. I love how the screen is completely integrated with the dash. Now this reminds me of the LC500H, the Lexus that I drove. That car also had the same design language. I believe it's more modern. Personally, that's a better design language than other infotainment systems that stick out in the middle of the dash. Alright, now let's move on to the bad things about this car. First, the fit and finish. There's just some questionable design language here that doesn't really meet up to the expectations of the luxury car image that Alfa Romeo is trying to be in. Take, for instance, the infotainment dials. Now, these buttons look good from a distance, but up close and when you start to touch these dials, you can tell that there's a feeling of cheapness to it. Up close, you could tell that this is obviously plastic, and holding on to these dials, you could feel a lot of play in them. It doesn't provide the sense of luxury that you expect. Looking at the dash, the grain on this dash is also very large and noticeable. It almost emulates a leather look, but when you sit inside and you look at it, it's obviously rubber and it looks a bit cheap. I also don't like the rear visibility of this car. I'm not talking about looking back through the second row windows, but I'm talking about looking at the rear view mirror. Because of the low roof and also the high seats, you just have this tiny window where you can see the traffic right behind you. Another thing I don't like about this car is that this car has some weird proportions. Now, take for instance the B-pillar. The B-pillar is more forward on this car than other crossovers of this size. Now, me being of average height, I don't really care about that, but if you're a taller person, you're going to be moving the seat further back, which means that the B-pillar is within your periphery. If you look at the floor, there's also this weird floor hump across the front seat that I don't know why it's there. Another minor bad feature that I want to mention. Now, while I love the windshield wipers and how the sprayer has been integrated into the wiper itself, so when you spray and driving into the sun, it doesn't temporarily blind you. Instead, it just kind of like coats the front of the blade as it goes over the windshield. But the switches to turn those on feels really, really cheap. You know, it's made of plastic, but it's not like that high density plastic. This feels more like a toy switch. Again, kind of going away from that luxury feel that this car is going for. So now I've talked about the good and the bad of the Alfa Romeo Stelvio. Let's talk about the ugly. And the ugly of this car is the panel gaps. Now, this is something that I've found in other Alfa Romeo cars that I've driven. For instance, the 4C. Oh my God! In that car, there's this hideous panel gap right between the front bumper and the fenders. And on this car, I found the same hideous panel gap right between the hood and the front bumper. It's hideous, and it's basically unfortunate because this is such a beautiful car, and for a small detail like that to pop up, it really makes it an eyesore, and once you see it, it can't be unseen. So if you're shopping for an Alfa Romeo, it's almost like shopping for fruit in the supermarket. You have to really closely inspect which one's rotten and which ones are good. If I were buying an Alfa Romeo, I would personally go down and check out the entire inventory and make sure that there's no weird panel gaps across the entire lineup. So to summarize, the parts of the Stelvio that's important for driving, you know, the enjoyment of driving, the engine, the transmission, the drivetrain, which, by the way, is also, since the engine is longitudinally mounted, means that this all-wheel drive is more rear biased, which is more fun. The parts that are important for making the car fun to drive, the Stelvio did an amazing job. But when it comes to the other parts that's not really related to driving, it's just not completely there. And for a car that costs this much, you should at least have some level of expectation that the interior is going to look and feel nice. For the Stelvio, it just looks nice from a distance. And when you get up close, and especially when you start touching and like feeling some of these dials and these seams, it's just not completely there. And it's really, really unfortunate. Now, to answer my earlier question whether this car deserves the name Stelvio after that famous mountain pass, this one is like the Stelvio Light. And I say that because there's an even bigger and badder brother to the Stelvio coming out soon, and that's the Stelvio Quadrifoglio. Of course, that has the V6 twin turbo from, that's right, it's a Ferrari engine, and that produces 505 horsepower. With that being said, the Alfa Romeo Stelvio is still a fantastic car. If you're looking for a performance crossover, this one delivers because the power to weight ratio is better than some of the other luxury midsize and compact crossovers. It's also one of the most beautiful crossovers you'll find at this price range. Just don't look too closely because eventually you'll find some flaws. And that wraps it up for me. That's the good, the bad, and the ugly of the 2018 Alfa Romeo Stelvio all-wheel drive. Now, do you agree or do you disagree with me? Please let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Hit that like button, hit that bell so you can get notified anytime we make a new video. And of course, follow us on all of our other social media pages. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also follow us on our Drive Tribe page. That's where we have all the written reviews of the cars that we've driven, and also various articles on automotive news and just various other things. So that's linked down below. And that wraps it up for me. My name is Hanson. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching till the end, and I'll see you next time.